Greetings from California. I'm Ryder Bullock, and this is the Ryder Report. Tonight, we bring you a unique and focused conversation with candidates for statewide office, centered not on talking points but on real concerns of sports fans across the Golden State. Over the past several weeks, thousands of questions were submitted, polled directly by me, and gathered across social media from fans, voters, and everyday Californians who care deeply about the future of sports in this state. From those submissions, I have narrowed the field down to 12 key topics, 12 questions that reflect what is actively being debated among voters right now. Neither the candidates nor their campaigns have seen these questions. To preserve the integrity of the discussion, these interviews are being recorded and released on a delayed basis. While the core 12 topics will remain the same for each candidate, the exact wording and order of the questions may vary. This is not a debate. Each candidate will appear alone, giving them the opportunity to speak directly and in depth on the issues, without interruption, without time limits, and without rehearsed exchanges. My goal is simple: to give sports fans across California clear, honest insights into where these candidates stand on the issues that matter to them. And with that, we are pleased to welcome Governor candidate Leo Naranjo with us. Leo, thank you so much for joining us. How about you take a minute here and introduce yourself and why you are running for governor of the state of California?
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Ryder. How are you doing? My name is Leo Naranjo the fourth, and I'm a candidate for governor, of course, in California in 2026. I started my run here in 2023, as a matter of fact. And one of the biggest reasons of why I'm running is, first and foremost, I'm running for the citizens of this state. I'm hoping to bring back some prosperity instead of poverty, lowering prices here in California up to 50%. But at the same time, you have to drop spending a corresponding amount. I'm looking to put children into education to fulfill their dreams of what they're looking for in their future. I'm not trying to let children meander and dream about trying to become educated. There's a lot of things that are wrong in California that our current governor has led us into. There are a lot of things that are incorrect that our current legislature has done. And I'm hoping with the support of the population here in the state, the citizens, that we go about it, we make corrections to the state and rewrite those wrongs within the 4 years if I'm lucky enough to be elected.
Okay, thank you. We are going to start with a topic that is on everybody's mind. It is the word of the year, and that is affordability. Sports in California have become an unaffordable luxury. The ticket prices for tomorrow's Dodgers-Angel games start at $111. So fans and families are being priced out of stadiums, not because they don't love their team, but because basic life costs have skyrocketed. That's not strictly a league issue, that's an economic issue. What specific policies of yours would make it possible for Californians to attend a ball game again?
We have to go and find out why we have these prices that surge to the point where the great American pastime is only reserved for the few and the lucky ones that can either afford it out of pocket. We don't want to have people to try and attend sports where they break the bank. What I'd like to do is to reach out and contact the sports teams and find out what is it that's driving these prices out of control just for the average family to be able to enjoy a sports game. We build multi-million-dollar stadiums, but my problem with that is I don't agree with the concept of pressuring communities to build a stadium at the behest of a league under enforcement. In other words, build me a stadium or else I'm going to depart the area. That's kind of like a coercion. You're a team that engages in multi-million, if not multi-billion-dollar practices. Your teams are worth gobs of money. Your players, you're paying exorbitant prices for. And for me, my thing is, you're a sports team. If you want the stadium, build the stadium. We as the community will support you. But the build it for us or else concept I've never been for. So I'd like to speak with the sports league. I'd like to get with either NBA, NFL, the baseball commissioners, and find out how we can bring these prices down to the level that's affordable for your basic family just to attend a sports meet, sports game. If your prices for the regular season are $110 a ticket, which is probably in the nosebleed section somewhere in the stadium, imagine if you actually get to a playoff. Imagine if you actually get to the big league, the World Series, the Super Bowl, or anything of that nature. Those prices soar even further.
Right. Since you brought it up, we'll talk about pro sports teams and taxpayers. California teams enjoy billions in taxpayer-funded incentives. Just for reference, it cost the city of Los Angeles $5.5 billion to build SoFi Stadium in downtown Inglewood, where the Rams and the Chargers play. So stadium deals, municipal support, the fans are paying for that. So meanwhile, though, while all that's going on, fans are paying more at the ticket box, or taxes also, and they're not getting much in return. Do you believe California's major sports franchises are taking advantage of taxpayers?
I would say that somewhere in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, we watched the explosion of the NFL from the dirty days of Johnny Unitas to what we have now. The sophistication of equipment, the sophistication of players, the pricing that we get for people to play sports. And somewhere in the 80s or the 90s, we had this concept now where it seemed to be no longer a sport. It seemed to be like any other business, and the attraction seemed to disappear. Now you had teams that were no longer loyal to their fan base; they were loyal to the almighty dollar. I'm a team in Oakland, just to use example. And I love my fan base. I got some chaotic fans out there. I mean, they go wild whenever we play. But I want a new stadium, and you're going to give it to me. Wait a minute. You're the multi-million dollar company. If you want a new stadium, build it. We'll support it as a fan base by showing up. We'll give you some perks because you built it in our city to show up. But you're now trying to not only charge the fans to build you a multi-million dollar stadium, you're going to tax the hell out of them to get a ticket and give them a huge surcharge just to buy the ticket. It no longer is a matter of loyalty to the fan base; it's loyalty to the almighty dollar. And then on top of that, you have the, well, if you don't build me a stadium, I'm moving. Oh, let's say to Las Vegas because they've decided that they're going to squeeze their fan base to build me a stadium. So it lost the luster of the sport now to a business, to a corporation, and a squeeze that if you don't build this for me, I'm going to leave. Bye.
So just to clarify, do you believe California's major sports franchises are taking advantage of taxpayers?
They're doing more than taking
Okay.
advantage of taxpayers. I think sometimes they actually put them, and I'm trying not to use the B word, but I think sometimes that they enforce the public that if you want the community support, if you want the community money, if you want us as the sport team to stay here, you have to come out of pocket for our sport. And you can color it and picture it and call it however you want to, but it ends up to be the same thing. The bottom line, you basically blackmailed the fans to build you something that you don't want to build, so that you save money, and then you double charge the fans to get there to stay.
Would you require teams to deliver measurable public benefit in exchange for public money?
Looking at the public benefit, you have, just like any other business, you're going to have breaks that the community is going to give you, whether it's in taxes, whether it's in protection, whether it's in endorsements or anything like that. You're going to have the ability to show up to the community and pour into it. In order for you as a business, because that's now what you've become, you're going to ask the fan base, i.e. the community, for perks to be there in order to build that stadium. I'm not unwilling to do that. but they have to be reasonable and rational. It can't be the one-sided, the community is going to do all the fitting of the bill and you get away with all the plunder, which is what seems to be happening now.
Okay. Let's move on to sports betting, and more specifically, the failure of Prop 27. Why do you believe Prop 27 failed?
Bring that up to me again. So
this says the Prop 27 failed because voters didn't trust the system or the partnerships between the tribes and commercial operators.
Betting?
Yes.
I think it's online betting.
Yes.
So you have the online betting world. You have everybody wants to get into the online betting world, whether it's the Indian casinos, whether it's just Joe Blow average, whether it's the sporting community themselves, and you've created a mechanism here to basically push it to go forward. If you have a lot of doubt in what you're trying to do in online betting, you're going to have pushback from the very people you're trying to slam things onto. In other words, we want this to happen. Here you go. Vote on it. Vote for us. And the public withdrew, or they pulled back from that support. What's the catch? What's the gimmick? Why do we have so many things involved where you have pro on one side and anti on the other one? Why is online betting such a problem? You had problems in the past with online gambling. You still have problems with online gambling. And it's an easy way to either sucker people in, stripping them of their money on something that looks innocuous, or there are no safeguards that the public is assured that their bets are going to be safe, secure, paid. They're not going to be taken advantage. They're not going to be robbed internally with all the other gizmos that you can do on the online world, and the ability to be hacked and to be thieved, online hacking and online thievery. So they don't want to be plundered either.
What about...
There needs to be more to protect that on behalf and the benefit of the public engaging in it than it is for the sports people being able to do it.
What about in-person betting, like going to a casino? I live pretty close here to Pechanga Resort. We could get a sports book there. Harris, in Southern California as well. So, would you support a new framework if elected?
For online betting, or in-person betting?
Yes, sports betting, online or in person, otherwise.
Right. A lot of that pushes out to, and that's. Going back into my days, in the older days, you had in-person betting. I mean, sometimes you went to casinos, sometimes you went here. A lot of that happened in Vegas. Not an issue. All of a sudden, it became an issue with Indian gambling. And that then started to see the breakup of, you can go to Harrah's and do gambling over here, but we don't want you to do it over there.
Right.
And so it looks like there's a reason, for some strange unknown, that you have the word gambling. You're okay with in person. You just don't want it on Indian grounds, and that becomes the internal casino fight. And without knowing that internal argument, why are we having that issue? Gambling is gambling, but you can see the results, and I understand the fear from their point. Vegas used to be the betting gambling place of the world. Reno used to be the biggest little city in the world. You look at Reno today, oh my God, what a difference from 30 or 40 years ago since the opening up of tribal casinos.
Right. Should California join the 38 states that already have legalized it?
Legalized in-person gambling?
Yes.
I would say put that to the voters and let them decide it.
Right.
Don't legislate whether or not people can gamble one way or the other. If that's what they want, they'll vote for what they want, the public. But I wouldn't say that the legislature should step in and say, well, we're going to demand this, we're going to demand that. Let it pan out and let the powers that be make the pros and the cons argument for the people to vote on.
Okay. Let's continue on this topic of betting. While you and I can't bet on the Lakers to win the Thunder game tomorrow night, we would have to drive to Vegas. You and I, though, can bet on the governor race, the LA mayor race, on apps like Kalshi and others. California bans online sports betting but allows betting on political outcomes, governor races, even federal offices. Critics say it invites dark money and even election manipulation. Should California ban political betting?
If you're not able to bet on sports because of those fears, but you're allowing political betting, I mean, that should speak unto itself that you have an issue. Why are you doing that? What's the fear of online betting? Exactly what you pointed out: dark money, backdoors money, controlling games and outcomes. We've seen some sports figures in the past over the years that have been caught doing some backdoor betting. We've seen and heard of reports of some games seemingly being tossed because of betting. In the political world, you shouldn't be betting. You want to make a bet with your friend about who's going to win whatever political race, knock yourself out. But as far as legalized gambling on that process, no, we shouldn't be doing that at all. You want to keep the process clean. You don't want to taint it with, we got dark money circling around, and then you have a candidate that jumps in to toss the game, I guess you could say, because of a bet for a political outcome. That's not a democratic run system to elect individuals. That's gaming a system for somebody else's benefit.
What's your thoughts on Spencer Pratt being the odds-on favorite on Kalshi to be the next mayor of Los Angeles?
Spencer Pratt, when he first came on, very blunt and basic, when he first came on, okay, great for him. He seems to be an individual that's pissed off because his house got burned up in the Palisades. He got inspired to run a race. A lot of questions came about what was he running as? What was his background politically? And I was one of those that asked that question. I understand a mayor position is a nonpartisan race. You're talking about Los Angeles, and you're going to be felt out for your partisanship. That panned out. He said he was basically on the right side of the argument, and away the race went. What has happened since that declaration by him and the momentum that he's been generating, the online presence, the talk of the community, is that you got people involved seemingly in trying to gut his efforts and squeeze him out of the race to bring it down to two people. Because of that, that elicited a report from me to the FBI over election integrity problems, and they called me back seeking more information from my initial complaint.
Okay.
Does he have a chance? He has a chance like anybody else to win the race. It's up to the people of Los Angeles if that's what they want to have for mayor. If not, there's a chance.
Okay. And and the fact that he's the betting favorite on Kalshi.com says what?
To me, it doesn't say anything.
Okay.
I mean, you can place a bet on whatever you want
Okay.
to. Hey, I think that ladybug's going to take off the next 10 minutes off the rose petal. Okay, so what? It's up to the ladybug. Same thing here. You can bet all you want to on a side note to see whether or not Spencer Pratt's going to win the mayorship. It's up to the people of Los Angeles, and they have to come out to determine their fate for mayorship. You already seen what Karen Bass is all about. I would not venture to say if you don't have a turnout, you're going to get the same people that instilled Karen Bass the first time doing it the second time, and then you get what you get. And I'm sorry to say, the people who don't vote in this race are part of the problem, just like the people who did vote and instilled that lady into the mayorship, and they ended up with what they have.
Have you checked your odds to be the next governor?
My odds are extremely long. I basically my run for governor has gone up against. Let's break that down from the personal portion. I'm up against an establishment that is entrenched in losing. I am up against an establishment that is entrenched in controlling. You can figure out which party by that dictation. I am up against those folks that have interests that are personal to them, that they want a particular candidate. I'm up against the forces that support a particular party in this state. That's the media. And unless you come up with funds or unless you're a real big shot name, they're not going to give you exposure on the news. Quite frankly, I would probably have to dive into the river to save a drowning mom and her child in order to get 5 seconds on the media coverage. Um, then you add in the individuals themselves, high media profile, the bottom line is I'm up against the rich and the famous who are trying to dictate to the public, the citizens of this state, who's going to be your candidate. We've chosen. You get the obligation to vote, but don't vote this guy because we're going to tell you to pick this one. and then we're going to coerce you, shame you, and quite literally threaten you to a degree that if you don't pick A, oh my God, we're going to get this guy because there's only two options. And that's that's a falsity. We've created the environment now, in my opinion. We've created the environment now where the public is no longer in charge of their own elections. A quarter, the rich and the famous, the oligarchies, whatever you want to call them, they're driving the train. We just get the illusion to elect an individual that they've already chosen for us to decide on. The vote's quite literally decided on. And if you listen to the rhetoric, if you listen to the speech, whatever, the message is being driven home, especially in this election. If you're a common average person, you no longer have a seat at trying to run your government. Government for the people, of the people, by the people is no longer an option for us. It is a luxury they give us. And they pretend like we're having an input when we don't, because the factors have already been decided. Here are the candidates, top two in the Republican Party. That's all you see. If you don't vote for one of them, oh my God, we're destroyed, we're devastated. Ladies and gentlemen, look on your ballot. There are 10 other Republicans besides the top two. You have a choice. All you have to do is do some research, look, and at the end of the day, you decide our fate, not the candidates.
Okay, let's move on. We're going to talk about transgender athletes in women's sports. Governor
Ooh.
Newsom. Governor Newsom said allowing biological males in women's sports is deeply unfair. Do you agree with that statement?
Yes, it is.
Okay. However, after he said it, he's done nothing to change California policy. Where do you stand on the issue of transgender athletes in women's sports?
Governor Newsom did exactly what a a polished politician that doesn't give a rat's normally does. I'm Mr. Ryder. I'm all for you doing this, but I'm all for you doing that. However, I'm all for this happening unless. So the cut, breakaway, insert the real position that you have then gets inserted. Back in 2023, 2024, after I started my run, there was an issue with women's sports highlighted across California down in the Temecula area,
Yeah.
to the degree that you now get the community battling against each other. You have the transgender athletes being inserted, and not necessarily inserted. I want to use the words that are applicable. You have the transgender students that are being enforced onto the teams. You have the teams that are being enforced to entreat with them on a sporting field. Does a transgender enhance the ability to get injured on a volleyball court? That's up to the young ladies that play. And the attitude that I found down there was parents are getting fed up with the argument. Let the girls play, let them decide.
Right.
And to a degree, I believe that. But you're literally stealing opportunities away from women athletes, young lady athletes that are trying to go through the process to establish themselves as a sporting figure or as an athlete, period. Track and field. Look at what's happening in track and field. Biological boys that are now transitioning to girls are blowing away records, but they're not girls. They're
Right.
not women. And what Governor Newsom has done, he's BSing basically the public. I'm not for this. However, I'm going to push this and be acceptable to it. And oh Lord, don't say no, because I got an AG I'll cut loose to sue you to oblivion to make you happen for this. And my stance since the Temecula issue, when Temecula started to threaten parents with, here's a piece of paper that says your child is mentally defective if they do not allow trans people on their team.
Wow.
My concept is very simple. We're going to have girls and girls sports, boys and boys sports. And if you want a trans league, create one. I would be supportive of that. But we're no longer going to have this enforcement that you must do this or else to destroy women's sports. Where the hell are the women in California that stood up way back in the 70s for women's rights while we're watching them get literally destroyed right now because you're no longer a woman unless you are insert
Right.
the word.
Right. So just to clarify, you do support California requiring athletes to compete based on biological sex at birth.
Yes.
Okay. How do you, with that said, how do you balance fairness in competition with respect and dignity for trans youth?
Again, boys will be boys,
Okay.
girls will be girls in their sporting league. Now, if you want to invite the young lady to play tackle football and she wants to play tackle football and gets out on the field and gets hurt playing tackle football, do we blame the sports league or do we blame the athlete that volunteered to get
Right.
into a guy's sport and get physical? That's one thing. But when I tell you the boys' league has to have 5 girls on the team,
Yeah.
that's enforced.
Right.
So how do you do the dignity of the team? I've got no problems with the trans athletes, but we're not going to enforce you into women's sports because you're a now transitioning to be a girl because biologically you're not. If you want a sport league, create one, but we're not going to instill you and then give the premise that this young lady has now by 5 destroyed the women's record of the 400-meter relay, and you're not really a woman or a girl. That's going to upset and disgruntle a lot of people, but it is what it is. It's truth speaking to what's happening in the world. Having your own league, no complications. Forcing yourself onto a league, I have issues with that, and I would take up the Title IX defense against that.
Okay. Let's move on. We'll talk about name, image, and likeness. California, through Senate Bill 206 in 2019 and Senate Bill 26 in 2021, pioneered name, image, and likeness rights for student athletes, allowing college and high school athletes to monetize their personal brands, such as endorsements, social media, autographs, and other things without losing eligibility. It is now, in 2026, a mess. College players are making oodles of oodles. They don't know what to do with it. Inconsistent state laws, pay for play disguised as sponsorship, and no federal standard. Nick Saban was a part of Donald Trump's sports committee that he pioneered, and Nick Saban said, "Look, college football is a mess. College sports are a mess. Donald Trump, can you save us?" And Donald Trump has pioneered with Ted Cruz to draft a bill. What is California's responsibility in all of this?
Woo! That's a lot to feel.
Okay.
College sports has grown significantly as well from what it was. College sports used to be the vetting place where professional athletes found their niche, you could say. People highlighted sports folks in college. Here is an opportunity in a time frame where you're going to see an athlete that has come up through the ages from youth to where they are in college, in their particular field, their sport, and they've excelled to grab the attention of NFL teams, ergo the draft, et cetera, et cetera. Now all of a sudden, as I said, the sport has morphed to a business. Now all of a sudden that business has morphed into the lower rank being college. And it starts there. And now you have the money pool, and I get the concept. Well, I'm playing on your team. You're making millions of dollars off of my skills. I should have a partake of that. If you want to use my name, my brand, my abilities, I should be compensated for it. I get the concept. However, now you start to bring in the business realm of that concept. I don't feel like playing unless. I don't feel like doing this unless. You can't highlight me unless. And that's where it starts to get ugly because what are we? Are we profiling college athletes, or are we now profiling money above the sport? So you have the sport is now so imbued with money. Now you can't tell the difference between the sport, the league, and the NFL and everything else. It's a business. It's now a business, cut and dry. It looks like a sport, but literally it's a business now. We're going to pay for an athlete to be on there. How about we go back to our roots of what the sport was supposed to be? How about we start reining in some of this college, these college millions that are poured in for this league as the opportunity? If you want to have a league that's a professional league, a springboard league, or anything else like that, that highlights athletes, but you want to make the major dollar in payments, create that league. Take it out of the college level and do just that. Here we go. Entry level to the NFL Sport League, call it whatever you want to call it. But you're blasting colleges, you're enticing people to worship the almighty dollar, and you have no idea where they are in the educational world of what they're in. Are they in school because they're trying to learn, or are they in school because they can catch the football 70 yards down the field within 4 or 5 seconds, catch a ball, dance, and everything else? And when you overemphasize the dollars to the ability to the sport, then you've just created a dark monstrosity that you now have that's out of control. It's going to be very difficult to rein some of that in. The money is already poured into the colleges. They've allowed that nonsense to transpire, and so it's going to be difficult to try and to tear it apart again, to be the sport away from the dollars.
If elected, would student athletes be protected under your administration?
You want to make sure that the students, and keep that first in mind, student athlete,
Right.
student first, athlete second. If you're in college solely because of your physical prowess on a sporting field, regardless of what it is, track and field, golf, tennis, you name it, whatever the case might be, there's an issue there. You're there to learn, but you have an athletic ability behind you. That should be key and foremost. Learn, and then the sport. If you're there in the reverse, I don't care about learning, I'm only here for the sport, we have a problem. Would I want to protect the students from themselves? We'll do the best that they can, but ultimately you are the individual that drives we can't nursemaid you through life as a state. If you get into that field and you get burned by it, what is the state supposed to do on your behalf for that? Can we
Right.
try and keep the colleges off from using your likeness? They get millions of dollars and you get nothing. We have to look at that and make sure that you're compensated for the purposes of the college. If they're getting paid millions for you to use your face on their promotional skills, then obviously you owe that young man or that young woman some dollars for that likeness. I would not want to see that money paid directly to the student as long as they're in college. You want to put that into account for them that they have access to upon graduation. Hey, that's fine. But let's make sure that we enhance college is before the athletics.
Okay.
In short, yes.
Okay. Well, no, that's fine. That's fair. Um, let's talk about
Okay.
performance enhancing drugs, also known as PEDs. In the state of California, it is strictly regulated by both state laws and governing bodies for high school and collegiate sports. However, PED use continues across multiple sports despite years of regulations. What responsibilities do states have, if any, to ensure athletes are competing clean?
If you come up positive with any, this is just to me in my mind for athletics. You either are athletic or cut and dry, you're cheating. You're cheating whether you have somebody that sticks their leg out, catches a runner on the side, causes a fall. You're cheating if you're running alongside somebody, you're not a great athlete, but you're going to try and sauce up your team by throwing that loose elbow, which causes a big pile up. Um, you can't lift these weights unless you're pumped up with some insert whatever drug that you're using to gain the advantage against somebody else. Gaining advantages, I get. Enhancements, I do not. Whether you are on a steroids or you have anything similar now, since that compound is now grown and there's all kinds of different compounds, some easily detectable, some not. If you're on any type of an enhancement, my view is this: you're out of that league. Bye. You've taken that option. You're going to suffer the consequences if you get caught and tested. And I believe that you should have regular testing in the sport. I believe you should have regular testing in the sporting community. If that's what you're doing, then you're destroying the sport from within. You're part of that destruction, and you need to be removed from it. Let's keep the spirit of sports and competition exactly what it was meant to be, a sporting competition. And let's not ruin it by trying to build a $6 million man or woman figure that we pretend is a natural athlete when they have all kinds of enhancements that brought them to that stage. And now you have the facade of a sport and more of the creation of a biological Superman.
Okay. Let's talk about another drug that's not really a performance enhancer, but still a drug. The NBA recently removed cannabis from its list of prohibited substances. Are you okay with that?
You've one step below the federal acceptance of pot in the world of the United States of America today. Um, uh, Going backwards, in my high school days, if you had a nickel bag of weed, oh man, you were in trouble if you got caught. You had a dime bag of weed, you could buy that in high school property. Everybody knew who was doing what, but that could land you a few years in jail. We've gone from being sentenced and incarcerated to, dude, just don't blow that bong while you're driving.
Right.
The league has taken pot off of the basketball worlds. You can't have this substance in your body or else moment. Okay, league decision. Look at the world we're at. I don't, I can't say I agree one way or the other, but I will say this. If you've done that and one of your star basketball players comes onto the field half crock smelling like hash, that perception is going to fall on you, the player, and you, the league. If that's the type of sport that you want to see, is high on happy the Golden State Warriors playing the Phoenix Suns. I mean, if that's acceptable, hey, God bless you. It's your league.
Yeah.
But you should, as a league, clean up and pretty much say this. What you do off time with pot, that's on you, the player. But when you step on this court, if you're a sport acting like a business, then start acting business like. If it's that damn important for you to get high, then you'll face a suspension for play. If it's that damn important for you that you have to get stoned before you play, then maybe you don't need to be playing on the field and you suffer the consequences. But the league seems like they're trying to skirt the line between the sport, the business, and the personal preferences while being business-like. So, here's the ramifications. If your players want to get high, that's on them. But if they get high when they're supposed to be playing, that's a problem for the league, and they have to address that. And you let the chips fall where they may.
Okay. I want to backtrack really quick. I skipped a question. I'm so sorry. In regards to the performance enhancers, would you support stricter testing laws for California-based teams and events?
Yes.
Okay. Why?
And I would support the enforcement of testing, even those teams that come into the state to play. You're not going to come into the state with a sport hugely advantaged because of a narcotic, a synthetic, or anything else that you've pumped in your body that gives you that overwhelming edge in competition. It's no longer a competition. You're biologically and genetically altering your structure to tilt the scale from the sport being about people competing based on their abilities. You're no longer on the ability. You're now on the performance and performance enhancement. If you're going to compete, here's how you compete. If you want to pump yourself up full of drugs and you're from Nevada, you won't be competing in California. You can show up with your team, yes, you can do that, but you're not going to be allowed on the field if you come up hot on a test. And we're going to ensure we have fairness in the sport, not biologically or genetically engineered athletics. The first thing that comes to mind is the old Rocky movie, if you remember Draco.
Yeah.
He got pumped up full of athletic, full of enhancements and everything else like that. No, that would be an individual that could cheer from the sidelines, but they're not going to be allowed in the ring. No.
Let's talk about technology. This is VAR, officiating and transparency. Video reviews. It's almost become a thing in sports. It seems like every time there's an NBA game, we go to the monitor probably 5 or 6 times a quarter with coaches' challenges and trying to see where the ball went out of bounds. And with that, officiating errors have become weekly headlines. Should California, the home of Silicon Valley, be leading national efforts to modernize officiating systems for major sports leagues?
Wow. Run that by me one more time. It was a lot to take in.
Okay. The NBA Replay Center is in New Jersey. The NFL Replay Center is in New York City, I believe. California is home to Silicon Valley. It's the leading technical resource center on the planet, in my opinion. Should California, the home of Silicon Valley, be leading national efforts to modernize officiating systems for major sports leagues, the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, etc.?
We've gone, and I refer backwards. So try not to chastise me. Though. Let's go back. Let's go back. Let's go back. Let's do this too.
History is important. History is important.
Yes, let's go back and look at where we started as sports. What no good ref, insert foul word. You no good. How do you blow a call like that? And somewhere along the lines, I want to say 70s or 80s, we interjected the replay of what transpired. Infantile in its beginnings. We got to go backwards to look at what a player did.
I blame Howard Cosell, his halftime highlights.
Halftime highlights. There you go. You got to replay, and there's an announcer, sportscaster, whatever, and they highlight a gaffe. Whoa, hey, that's a neat idea. That's awful interesting. We can use that now to show and highlight screw ups, and from there it expanded. Okay. And now we have penalties. Whoa, we got a penalty? What happened there? Let's go to the highlight. Let's go to the replay. Let's look and see what transpired. And then we have the Zoom camera, that little thing with the wires. You got the NFL flag camera. You have the sideline cameras, the stadium cameras. You have all kinds of media now. So we've greatly expanded our exposure to see screw ups on the field. Sometimes they're great. Look what they did. Sometimes they're embarrassing. Look at that. What happened in the last year with that couple? No names mentioned, but yeah, that's embarrassing. You have a referee that completely screws one up. Okay, they're human. Sports people are human. Stuff happens. But every time you run a play for a 5-minute review to make sure the lineman is not breathing through their mouth and their nose, or somebody's not picking their head through their helmet, you've blown it up so much now that it's the item. The sport is lost in the noise. And I get it that you want to highlight if there's a bad call. I get it if you want to highlight a challenge and everything else like that. But we've gone from challenging a call to quite literally, it's now the game is the highlight. And so I think the sports world needs to clean that up on their own. It doesn't need to be legislated or put something in and instill it. Sport is a sport. If you want to make it a business, it's kind of difficult because it's a sport. It's competition. If you want to bring in technology, great. Here's a highlight. The call was bad. Let's see if we can reverse the call. The human error element is now taken out by the keen eye of the camera. But when every play starts to go to the camera, when every after play goes to the camera, and not just one camera shot, talking about 25 different angles, and here's the cruise cam above that caught another one. What happened to the sport? And then you complain because you got people that are turned away from sports. You got people that don't want to see it no more because it's no longer a sport, it's a business. I am one of those individuals who back in the 70s loved football. My grandmother loved football. Oh boy, you got the Dallas Cowboys on TV. My grandmother would go ballistic. But you at somewhere down the road of life, the sport altered, and I can't pin a particular team, but the sport altered basically when a team in the NFL told their community, build us a stadium or else we're leaving. What the hell is that? You got a fan base that is 1,000% behind you, and now you're threatening them with movement unless, and then that became commonplace. You have athletes loyal, gung ho. Take the 49ers as an example. Loyal, gung ho. Everybody's all for the team. Well, I can't afford so and so's salary, so I shipped them off to get somebody else. Well, why did you pay him that much? And that was one of your best players. Yeah, but it was a business decision. It's no longer the sport; it's a business commodity, and you've made it so business like, business mannered, business structured that you can't understand why you have people that are turned off from sports, except certain folks. No matter what, they're always going to be sports fans, but you've destroyed the sport to become a mechanical, technological matchup, basically. Who's got the better optics of camera positions to show my team is better than your team because we catch more fouls than you do? And that's unfortunate, but that's what the league has allowed. They need to address that problem, utilize the replay as needed, but don't let it overwhelm the whole game to where instead of watching an hour of football and you no longer even get to watch the halftime events anymore, instead of an hour of football, you now have 40 minutes of instant replay. Here's what went wrong. That's it just destroys the sport to me. It's no longer a tool to enhance. It's something that has now grown and is overtaking.
Okay. So should California be taking more of an active role in fixing this?
California as a state,
With
no.
the
You
okay, Silicon
you want to
Valley
provide the
with its
tools
yeah,
to
okay.
to see, that's one thing, but for you to insert yourself on how it's utilized, that's the sport league's
Okay.
problem. That's their problem.
Okay. Do you believe fans deserve more transparency in how games are officiated?
Define a little bit more for me.
The NBA, okay. Let's see here. Let's see what we can get. The NBA, I guess the best example would be the NBA 2 minute report. Let me get a definition here. The NBA Last 2 Minute Report is a public assessment of officiating in the final 2 minutes of close games. It provides a play by play breakdown of every whistle and notable non call to explain the rules applied during high stakes moments. That goes out every game, that comes out to the public. Do you think that's enough, or do you think people need more transparency?
So and so you have a 2 minute, here's what we think the refs did moment in the
Right.
NBA.
Yep.
Again, you're inserting a widget into the sporting environment, and the widget is may or may not be growing in popularity. It gives you a breakdown of what the referees did, how good they were, how bad they were, what was missed, what was not missed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Is that a good thing for the public to see? It's a sport. You're not giving a definition of somebody making a widget. You're highlighting the refs. Today, however, you're on a small scale. But now when you start putting in the risks of this call broke my ability to get into the playoffs or the conference league championship game, when you start doing that, you're going to grow exponentially that widget into a feature. And eventually that feature is going to start to overturn and overtake the sport. Do we have refs on the court or in the football field or anywhere else? Yes. Are they human? Are they a human element? Yes. Replay highlights them. If you need to have a breakdown of what the ref did and why, that's like having the Howard Cosell
Right.
moment that you're not liking of the instant replay. If that's what you want in the league, I don't champion it. Thank you for the explanation. But, if you have to have that, keep it brief. It's not about the ref. The ref made a bad call. Hey, the ref made a bad call, and
Right.
call it a day. Fix the if you think you don't have enough refs, maybe you need to put another one on there. But then that itself is another problem too. We're not trying to have 20 refs
Right.
for 10 player, 10 people on a setup matchup.
Perfect. Let's move on to foreign influence in sports and specifically Saudi Arabia. Saudi money has upended global sports. We're talking golf with Live, soccer with the World Cup, even boxing and WWE, as World Wrestling Entertainment has announced that WrestleMania will be taking place in Saudi Arabia next spring. As governor, do you believe California should take a stance on foreign influence in teams?
Give me a second here because I got to get my thoughts together on that concept. When you have money involved, don't care where the source is coming from you, from me, from Bob next door, from Jane across the country, from Erica in Germany, or whatever the case might be. You've inserted money into your sport league. Okay, that's fine. The sports league did not have a problem when they were getting the money. Now, somewhere along the lines, the scales have shifted because the amount of money is now coming from a national level. The amount of income is no longer a commodity that they enjoyed because now it's somebody else controlling. Now there's a problem. Now we have a concern with foreign money. Saudi Arabia, we'll use that as a prime example. They're exerting their influence to the sport. They're now buying televised time. They're buying events. They're buying all these things that the sport here used to control, but now they can't. So they're reaching out for help to rebalance the concept. No, your sport was allowed to have that happen because you seduced yourself to the dollar. If the Saudis are buying the entertainment, fix it within your sport. Maybe you reject the contract. Maybe you don't accept the input of one of their bought and paid for golfers, if you will, in that moment. But the state is not going to control the problem that you've created. It's your business. Again, we went from sport to business concept. So the state is not going to control your business when you've gone to that venture, accepted that premise, and now you can't control the beast that you've created. Well, it'll cause our business to collapse. Oh well, it's your business, but that's not a taxpayer needed item that the state has to survive. Here you now have a flip to the concept. Well, you have to help us or else. No, actually, we don't. You have to fix it or else. But it won't be with the taxpayer support. Do I personally think it should be it should have been nipped in the bud years ago? Yeah, I personally believe it should have. The sports should have cleaned themselves up. But they got so seduced by the money. I want you to think of the pitcher plant that's out in the wild. You got seduced by the money. You went down the tube. Now you don't like it and you're trying to come back, but the little hairs are poking you continually downward to your own demise. This is what you've allowed. This is what you've accepted. You have to figure out how to get out of your problem of a foreign entity now controlling your business. But you've already sold out without actually being acquired by a business transaction.
Okay. Would you be in support of, if it happens, and this is just hypothetical, the public investment fund? That's the Prince of Saudi Arabia, his kingdom's public investment fund. If he wanted to buy, let's say, the Dodgers, for example, and the Dodgers were going to be owned by the Prince of Saudi Arabia, you'd be okay with that?
If the here's the thing that's ugly in the sport league and the sport world that has now gone away from sport into a business. If the Saudi Arabians, let's say the Dodgers, I'm going to take your for instance the
Just
Dodgers.
hypothetical here.
The Dodgers are putting themselves up for sale. They put themselves for sale.
Okay.
The Dodgers want $50 billion for their team. They have established that pricing. If you don't want foreign people to buy you, then you reject the foreign offer. But if you throw yourself out there and say I'm for sale for $50 billion, and the Saudi prince comes around and says, "Well, hell, I'll even kick one in. I want to buy your team for $65 billion. And you say, deal, what are we supposed to do?
Right.
You've already sold out by screwing your fans because you told them, if you don't support me, I will move. You went from sport to business. And now if you put yourself on the selling block, you are purchasable by anybody. But it's the Saudis. They met the price. Don't sell to them if you don't want them to buy you out. But once you put yourself on the block, you've made a business decision. And now you're not going to scream for help because the Saudis have met your price or exceeded it, and you're getting ready to agree with it. But now you want to turn to the fans so that they can get you legally out of what you've caused. Your selling has opened you up to everybody. And now that you've made that decision and you don't like it, you're relying on the state to bail you out of your own incompetence. No. If you get bought by the Saudis, you're now owned by the Saudis. And I guess, for you as a business and a sport league and as a team, maybe we need to create a new Los Angeles Dodgers that's born and raised in America that won't sell out their fans and sell out the area they're from as the current Dodgers under that scenario would have done.
Okay. Just for the record, the Dodgers, I don't believe, are for sale.
No,
but
hypothetical.
Yes. just for a listener or a viewer there. I'm going to give you a definition here of sports washing. Sports washing is a reputation management strategy where a government, corporation, or an individual uses the prestige and emotional appeal of sports to redirect public attention away from unethical conduct. These are human rights violations, abuses, major scandals, etc. What is your stance on sports washing?
Give me an example when you say steers you away from, because I have a concept on my mind. I want to make sure I'm on the same sheet of music.
Recent examples. I guess the most famous one, 1936, Berlin. They hosted the Olympics to say, "Oh, look how great Berlin is." Meanwhile, Nazi Germany's aggression and anti-Semitic policies were happening behind closed doors. 2018, the Russia World Cup. 2022, the Qatar World Cup treatment of migrant workers who built those stadiums. And then, of course, Live Golf here in the Saudi Arabia, where Saudi Arabia's human rights records and Jamal Khashoggi's murder, the American there. And so these are instances. Critics argue that sports washing can damage democracy by shielding perpetrators from accountability and using soft power to make fans and athletes unwittingly complicit in the rehabilitation. Your thoughts?
Again, let me go back to what I started with before. A sport is a sport is a sport. It's a competition of individuals or groups of individuals in a particular field of endeavor. Shot put, track, baseball, whatever the case might be. Sports is a national thing now. We go to the Olympics every 4 years, minus the interruptions for wartime, World War II being the biggest purveyor of that, where the world's athletes compete against one another for medals, trophies, and everything else like that. We've gone either from that, since that, or before that in the 1930s. We've now inserted the little bitty widget, the politic, into these teams. My team is from Germany. Highlight because Berlin hosted and what transpired in that Olympic. We focused on the team while ignoring the national problem, as you stated, within Germany at that time frame. Propel and fast forward now to where we are worldwide, nationally now. We have Olympics, yes, but we no longer have cities that we go to chosen randomly, however they do it scientifically, call it whatever you want to call it. It's now almost politically placed where the Olympics will be. It's almost now purchased who can afford to have an Olympic village built in a time frame to host the Olympics. If Saudi Arabia were to build an Olympic city, I'm pretty sure they would be hosting the next Summer Olympics if they desired to put out that much money. And now that you have teams that go there, you've now inserted the politic to the sport to the business. And so you're going to have the insertion of Saudi Arabian team is great. Look at the Saudi Arabian team. Yeah, but you're killing all your journalists in the street of Riyadh that are trying to cover the Olympics. No, no, no. Look at my team. How do you control, avoid, or how do you say yay or nay to that? That now becomes the job of the media to highlight or report the news, which they seem to be remiss in doing, especially when they cover candidates.
Right.
They're picking and choosing. How do you get that out of that mix and you try to avoid it? You can't. You're in the world today where you can no longer separate those two from a politic, because we've allowed the world now to advance to the degree that everything literally seems to have a political angle. So you can't just separate the two and say, no, let's just concentrate on the sport. You're in the middle of Cambodia that killed off 1 million people having a Winter Olympics. How do you ignore that? You do it because that's what you want to do. You do it, that's because what the media wants to do. You can call it sport washing. You can call it ignorance. You can call it ignorance. You can call it I don't see and I don't care to see. Call it whatever you want to. But the politic has been injected in sports. It's been allowed to grow and morph. And now that we're highlighting it, we're pointing out that we see problems in countries that host the Olympics, that host sporting events, that have their dirty background laundry and everything else. You highlight what you can, but you're not going to be able to yank that apart from the sport politic world, in my opinion.
Perfect. Let's talk about two of the biggest sporting events that.
Hey, wait a minute.
Okay.
I'm tired of these follow-on questions. I got to get my Katie Porter moment in there.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Let's talk about. Okay.
Caught you.
That was a great impersonation. Too bad I'm not a staffer. You could have called me a dirty word or something. But anyway, just kidding. If you are elected governor, you will have Super Bowl 61 and the 2028 Olympics under your watch. Two of the largest global events. How would you ensure California doesn't repeat past mistakes where host cities like Japan and others lost money and saw crime rise in Atlanta or displaced working families in Rio? What does responsible hosting look like under your leadership?
So we get the hope that we win the election. We're going to put the foot pedal to the metal on doing the things that I've said on my campaign trail. We're going to start fixing some of the problems within California. Oh, but Leo, now that you've done that, woo, guess what's coming up in 2028? We have the Olympics. Yes, we do. That's worldwide exposure. I'm going to use you as a reference. When you were a kid and your parents hosted something and your room was a disaster, I'm pretty sure, going down to the straight up vernacular, your parents broke their foot off in your backside.
Yes.
That you needed to fix your room up.
Yes.
Because you weren't going to embarrass them.
Right.
If you were a little bit older and they had company over and you come in after, not you per se, but you know, a 18, 19-year-old, you're coming home to visit mom and dad after tying one down all night at the club last night, and you barge in half dressed, crocked, hair every which way but loose. Your parents probably moved you away from view from the world until you got your act together. So in saying that, the LA area is going to be hosting the Olympics. The world focus is on LA. LA is already going to have the foot broken off into them that they need to clean up their stuff and get to being a city again, not a cloister that it is now. The mayor, we're gonna pull them up into Sacramento and have a discussion. I need to know where you think you're going. I need to know where you want to go, and then I'm going to let you know where I'd like to see you go if you're going to get funding from the state to help with your mess. But the requirement is to clean up their mess. What I'm leading to is We're not going to bend over backwards to suffice and satisfy the needs of the game at the expense of the citizens. In other words, we're not going to clean up LA for the 2 weeks that the Olympics are there,
Right.
and then it goes back to the crime-ridden hole that it is turning into now. When we fix LA, that's to get it pre-Olympic. When the Olympics come in, we're going to tighten up more. And when the Olympics is gone, we're going to ensure that LA stays fixed, not backslides into the mess that it was. Take San Francisco when the Chinese premier came in. The state bent over backwards to clean up the streets of San Francisco. Residents had been asking for that for a couple of years, a week's visit, eat off the streets of San Francisco. But as soon as that gentleman left, it went right back to the hole that it turned into, that it is now. And that was an abysmal failure of leadership at all levels of government, state on down, to allow that to happen. You accommodated the visitor, but you screwed the citizens in the same way by denying them what you should have been doing in the first place. Not going to happen under my watch. No.
Okay. Let's focus to the first of those two events. The first one will be the Super Bowl. San Francisco hosted the Super Bowl last year, and in preparation for that, Governor Newsom and others talked about California's number one success. You've probably heard this: number one in education, number one in the economy in the United States. We've also
He highlights a different view of being number one. For me, being number one is exactly that, being number one. But for Mr. Newsom, when he highlights being number one, I think he's referring to we're number one in last place. We're number one, 50th place for education. We're number one as the most expensive state to live in. We're number one as the highest tax state. So when you're listening to Gino, as I call him, Governor and name only Newsom, highlight what number one is. First, let's define what perspective are you coming from when you say number one? Number one is being number one, or we're first in the last place column, which is his number one.
Okay. Well, the Super Bowl in San Francisco found out California is also number one in the highest top marginal income tax rate in the country at 13.3%. We also have what is called the California jock tax. It is the application of state income tax to non-resident professional athletes for compensation earned while playing or practicing within California. Okay, it's at 13.3%. Now you go, well, 13.3% is not terrible. Let me give you the case study. Sam Darnold, the winning quarterback of the Seattle Seahawks, despite winning the championship, quarterback Sam Darnold reportedly faced a $249,000 tax bill from the state of California. Since the winner's bonus was only $178,000, he technically lost $71,000 for playing the Super Bowl and winning in the state of California. Now, a lot of athletes are saying, why would I want to play in the state of California? What do you say to those athletes?
Oh my gosh. I gotta catch my breath.
Okay.
I gotta think of what you just said and what you described, and I have to view the ramifications of what I'm getting ready to say, because I'm getting ready to piss off many of your folks, and I'm getting ready to piss off many people in a lot of different communities. Let me just be blunt with that. That was a good one. I like that. Again, Gino Gavin is number one in the loser column to me on anything he discusses. You can take all kinds of songs and parody them forever and a day. He doesn't turn anything to gold. He turns it to literally shit. You have a sports team that comes excuse me. You have a sports team that comes into California to play a sport. Where do they get their money from? The state doesn't pay them, pays them. Where did the league get their money from? That's another conversation of a different time, but the league pays them. They get their money from all sources, from everywhere. The money gets to a player from somewhere. Whether that league is based in Miami, New York, New Jersey, Rhode Island, I don't care, but it gets paid from somewhere. California is not individually paying that player, is my point. You have a Super Bowl game. The example that you gave, so-and-so won the Super Bowl. They got a big bonus money. And now here's your franchise tax board tax bill.
Right.
I guess if you want to have the optics to set the tone on where we will go with that tax in California,
The jock tax.
This is the best and only way I could do that as a candidate. The team that player was impacted by with that bill would be invited to the Capitol. Hell, let's even stand in front of the franchise tax board to emphasize the point. The team is going to be behind me, and everybody associated with the team will be behind me. The player is going to be beside me with the flags and everything else. I want you to picture this visual. And we're going to have the great announcement of what that tax is, how it is applied, and as governor, this is what I'm going to do about it. And then we're going to take that notice from the franchise tax board and rip that in half and say there is no debt due because there's nothing to be collected on or from. And then we're going to start going into, we're going to find a way to figure out how to get that tax off the books. We're going to either suspend it with executive decision. We're going to executive order, excuse me. We're going to figure out how to get the legislator to get off their butts and reverse and rescind that law. We're going to let it get challenged in court. We're going to do everything possible to ensure that the template and the mindset is clear. California is not going to tax everybody that crosses the state line simply because they crossed our state line, and now we get to slap them with the horrendous taxes. If you buy stuff, of course you're going to pay taxes on what you buy. But if you're a sports team like that, as the example, and you're playing in the state, you're earning money from somewhere that's not directly paid from something in California, what bill should have been assessed? There should not have been a bill. Does that mean that sports players get over wherever it is that they are? Well, if you're making money and you live in Texas and you play around the states, you're going to be billed for whatever you made in Texas. That's where you reside. If you're a California resident and you play for the Atlanta Falcons, anything you make, whether you're playing for the Falcons or not, as long as you're still a resident of California, you'll be taxed as a Californian. But if you're from Seattle, Washington, playing in the NFL in California, we don't tax you. They tax you. And to do that is I don't want to use the foul language word, but I'll creep it a little bit in. That's the most dumbass thing I've ever heard, that we're going to tax a player for winning a ball game, getting a bonus check, and California thinks that they deserve, I don't care if it's 20% or 10% or 2%. What gave you the right to think you could tax something you didn't provide to that player? The player does not live here. They don't reside in the state. They don't maintain a residence in the state. All that criteria to be a tax citizens of the state. They were a visitor that got paid by a league in a sport. And you're trying to instill an argument almost like that gentleman in Oregon that collected rainwater, and now the state of Oregon fined him and jailed him because he didn't pay taxes on their water that fell from the sky. I mean, how dumbass can you get on that one?
Yeah.
But that's the world we live in. So the overall thing I would say to the sports people, in short, bringing it all together, my deepest apologies for the stupidity of our state. My deepest apologies for the stupidity of the franchise tax people getting directions from the state. But that problem is going to be fixed and gone by the time I get into office, should I be elected.
Okay. Two more questions. First one's on two more.
Two more.
On jobs. First one's on jobs in the economy. Sports in California generate massive economic activity, but not always good jobs. What's your plan to grow the sports economy in a way that creates middle-class jobs?
The sports economy.
Stadium workers, people at the ticket booth. These are just
we can the government is not going to grow that economy on its own. We're not going to create a ticket holder. We're not going to create a admissions clerk or anything else like that. Excuse me. What we are going to do is we're going to enhance and entice the leagues that come down here and play in California. Hey, we got a great city. We have great venues. We don't want to have a situation to where, go back a couple of years, a rock band comes here in California to play a venue at a concert, and now they're on the front news, and not because they're here in California playing, it's because they got robbed when they left the airport.
Right.
I don't, that's the type of press that would really piss me off, because that's a failure down the road somewhere, which has now caused an embarrassment not only to the state, but to the governor of the state. And again, that's where I say that there's a perception, and there's a attitude, and there is a leadership gap in legislature, the governor, and the citizens that needs to be repaired. And I'm going to be one of those gentlemen, should I be elected, to fix it. And one of those fixes is going to include, you're not going to embarrass the state. E.g., you're not going to embarrass me so that I pick up a newspaper, I turn on the radio, we've got an NFL team in San Francisco showing up for the Super Bowl on Sunday, and they're held at gunpoint in the airport by some loony croony environmentalist group. No, 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 no. We're not going to do that. We're going to have a city that brings folks in. The sports teams are going to feel safe, secure, as well as the citizens, knowing we have that kind of visibility on us. Job opportunities are there. Now, if the sports teams feel that they only want to have 5 ticket people at the front gate, and you need to have about 15, we need to come to a understanding of what it is you need to do, because I don't want to see lines 5 miles long due to you wanting to save 10 positions you know you need for this event. Why are you doing that? Now the emphasis is no longer on, we've done our part as a city, a community, as a state. You are now becoming the embarrassment, and we're going to highlight your embarrassment. See what I'm saying on that? We're not going to take the embarrassing thing that you're generating. We're going to put the onus back on the sports team to come up. I've done everything I can as a governor. Our community has done everything they can as a community. But you insist on not hiring 10 people because you're tight. That's not going to be highlighted by San Francisco fails to process their fans. No, the team has effed up and became cheap. The $1 million that they make, they can't afford 10 people in the city to help with ticket sales. They can't afford 15 people taking calls, which is why half of their stadium was empty. We're going to put the emphasis back on the blame of where it lies, but it won't be on the city in that scenario. So we're going to work with the teams to ensure we do our part, but you have to do yours, and you're expected to do yours, so that we can make this a positive venue, both for your business/sport and for the community/the state.
Okay. Final question. This is just a personal fan question. Good human moment for you. What is your favorite professional California sports team, and why?
Favorite California sports team and why?
Yeah.
Woo. I never had a favorite California sports team, even though I'm a resident Californian. Matter of fact, my favorite NFL team back then was the Miami Dolphins.
Okay.
And that was in the 70s, highlighted by their 17-0 victory during that particular season. What I have endured is when the Sacramento Kings were created, and the military folks I was in let me know exactly how abysmal they were as a basketball team every day when they were highlighted in the news as being the most abysmal basketball team there. I would like to see the California teams do a little bit more to enhance their image, not just for their team's sake, but for the state's sake and the community's sake. And by that, I mean, if you're the Oakland Raiders, you should be enhancing the Raiders logos. You should be enhancing the city of Oakland, and you should be enhancing the people of Oakland, that supports you ceaselessly in the endeavors. But instead, you've pretty much
Yeah.
everybody by saying build this or else we're moving to Vegas, and then you took your happy slappy onward. You
Somebody's
respect is
salty that Oakland has lost all of their teams to Vegas.
can't imagine why. But I don't blame just the team, and I blame. There's a lot of factors that go into that. I blame the team to a degree. I blame the fans to a degree. I blame the community leadership to a degree. You've allowed this to happen. Everybody has a portion of the fault for that business decision to take place. And if it's a business decision because of team safety, the staff safety of the team, the family safety of the team, I understand that. But if it's because you didn't get something built that you demanded, no, I don't understand that. And so the team should work in harmony with the state. Hey, you're from California, dude. You want the teams to support you. You have to support what is propping you up and keeping you in business, which is your fan base. Stop blackmailing the fans to build you what you can afford on your own. Stop telling the fans, be here or else. You're a sport. You can't be there because many families can't afford you anymore. So it's altered. There has to be the happy medium. Would I encourage the fan base to support California teams? Of course. Could I be moved to do the same thing? Of course. But the luster for me on teams has altered when it became a business decision to go where the dollar takes you. You're no longer supporting the fan base. You're chasing the almighty dollar, and the fans are just there, whether they're here in California or to the new place that you're trying to build to somewhere else. If that's the basis of what you expect, then you're not endearing yourself to the fans. You're demanding that they respect you, and why would they do that? Because you're demanding it. You give none back to the fans, so why should they respect you as a team? And that's an attitude that needs to shift. It's an attitude that the governor can start shifting by setting the example. You want support? Here's what we need to support you, and we'll do that. The conditions are boom, 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 boom. We lay them out.
Okay. In 40 seconds, why should we vote for you and not Katie Porter?
First, first and foremost, I'm running for the citizens of this state. I'm not running for the people of California. I'm not running for Californians. The citizens of this state. They need to be first and foremost in every decision that we make. That has not happened in many years, especially the last 7 under Gavin Newsom. We need to take them into consideration first, anywhere and anytime that we use taxpayer money. That does not happen today. We need to ensure that the citizens, the soul of California, are taken care of by the government. They're able to go about their lives and to have the liberties and freedoms that they expect and enjoy for being citizens in this state. And basically, the end result is it's the citizens of this state, which is why I'm running for, not the citizens of other nations to take advantage of us and plunder the riches of what they're doing now.
Okay. He's Leo Naranjo. He is on your ballot. Early voting has already started. You have till June 2nd to cast your votes in the Golden State.
Please do vote and choose wisely. That's all I'm asking you to do. Look over your ballot, look at the candidates you have, and just remember, if you pop one early because somebody coerced you or forced you or intimidated you or shamed you, you can't withdraw mistakes at this point. Look at your candidates, vet them out, see what they're about, choose wisely, because in the end, you're deciding where we go as a state. And thank you very much, Mr. Ryder, for the opportunity to be here with your group and for the questions you've tossed on me. And I hope that you have a great afternoon.
Same to you, and thank you for your time.